From the Homestead Studios in Santa Clarita, California, this is a Headache Soul production. Welcome to Just the Tip-Sters, America's favorite true crime podcast, and I'm your host, the Electoral College. I'm not really.
I think you're much more necessary than the Electoral College.
That's what I was hoping for.
Yes.
I wanted to be something that everyone wants to abolish and does not represent voters, correctly.
This is opposite.
Yeah.
Opposite. No one wants to abolish you.
Oh, I don't know about that. I bet there's a list.
Yeah.
I'm your host, Melissa Morgan, and this is my lovely and talented co-host, Joshua Bevan. Say hello.
Hello.
You can be whatever you want to be, too. You can be a hanging Chad, which is what I call you behind your back.
Oh, jeez. Oh, no.
Speaking of hanging Chads, we're going to be talking about Manscaped.
Yes. Hey, Manscaped is back.
In full effect.
All right.
Does that sound dirty?
No. Well, it's not really full anymore. It's trimmed out.
Trimmed effect?
Trimmed out.
Hanging Chad is able to hang a little looser? I don't know. None of that. That's terrible. Anyway, so tell us about Manscaped, Joshua.
Support for Just the Tipsters is brought to you by Manscaped.
It is.
Yes. Who are the best in men's below-the-waist grooming.
The best.
Their products are precision-engineered tools for your family jewels.
Oh, my God. I love that.
It's so good. Oh, yes. I get to talk about my balls again.
Aren't you so happy? We had a few weeks of no balls, and now it's like, wow, I miss your balls so much. Let's talk about them some more.
But in this few weeks break, I want to be clear that I have kept myself groomed and
I am
cleaned.
very proud of you.
And thank you very much, Manscaped.
Yes,
for
thank
that.
you, Manscaped.
Yes. And if you want to take time to take care of yourself or one of your loved ones, go to manscaped.com and get a 20% off and free shipping with the code JustTheTip.
Free worldwide shipping. With the promo code JustTheTip. And Christmas is coming up, Tipsters.
Hey.
I'm so enthused to know that most of their clients are women who buy these wonderful things for their men.
Yeah, that's amazing. And it totally makes sense. Once you told me that, okay, yeah.
Yeah. Maybe a lot of men don't, invest in themselves. But maybe it's the time when you invest in yourself or you get this for someone you love.
There it is.
Yeah. I would be buying hundreds of them if I were that, popular. But I'm not. I'm not that popular.
How intimate are you with
none of your business?
Okay, fair enough. Thank you, Manscaped.
All righty. So I need to thank Tipster Bobby because I guess what I should say is, the last few episodes have been quite clunky because of your host, the Electoral College, not knowing how to press buttons correctly or getting a new MacBook Pro. And, I don't even know where to start, but we're going to re-record one that we did last week. And by then Joshua will have forgotten all the information and it'll be great. And it'll be very authentic reactions because he'll be like, I don't know what happened.
What?
Yeah.
They did what now?
Yeah. Who? Why? Yeah. It's perfect. It's like he's like Dory the goldfish and he just has no memory.
That's totally it.
It's so perfect. He remembers the important things. Mm-hmm. It's just stuff like this that he's like, I'm just showing up in my Shrek pajama pants. I'm wearing my Rudolph pants.
I thought you said you liked my pants.
I love your pants. Look at these.
Oh.
Aren't they cute? Rudolph pajamas?
Christmas.
Yeah. Oh, shit. Yeah. I just thought they were cute Rudolph pants. So
I suppose Rudolph exists other than just 1 month a year.
You're right. They have to feed him and shit.
And exactly.
Yeah. And polish his nose. So, yeah. We've had a really erratic schedule, and I apologize.
I heard that wrong.
Polish his nose?
Erratic.
What did I say?
No, I heard it wrong.
Oh, erotic?
You said it wrong.
You're a 12-year-old boy.
Yes, I am.
Yeah, we've had a very erotic schedule. Where have you been? I've been alone. Mm-hmm. I'm the one that messed it up. And I will also tell you, your alien host, Melissa, has had a couple of weird things, and I told Joshua about them. I'm getting calls from work on my cell phone.
Oh, man. That's nuts.
I know. And I spoke to an IT guy yesterday about, so I got this new MacBook Pro and I hate it with all my heart. And I use Mac computers at work and they do not intermingle. I don't do home things on the one at work, and I don't do work things on the one at home.
Yeah.
And yet I went to work one day last week, and I'd gotten this MacBook Pro the week before, and my wallpaper that I chose for my MacBook Pro showed up on my desktop iMac, I guess you call it.
That's so nuts.
The IT guy just kept telling me that couldn't happen. And I'm like, all right. So moving on. I have no idea about my alien DNA. I'm just wondering if maybe my Apple products have synced, because I know they do that.
Sure.
Because I haven't, a watch.
Right.
I have the Apple Watch. I have the iPhone. And then I, took the big deep dive and got this MacBook Pro, which is terrible. But anyway, thank you for being so patient with me. Tipsters are the best.
Yeah.
And I need to thank Tipster Bobby, which I did last week, but you won't hear it because the audio is almost unusable. She is our newest patron on Patreon. And not only is she our newest patron, she sent me a 12-pack of Mountain Dew Kickstart Black Cherry. She's the best, the best. And here's the other thing. She's like my little psychic child. I was out. I was out of Mountain Dew.
You were?
Yeah,
wow.
I know. That doesn't happen often. And I was like, you got to get to the store. I've just been so I have so little free time. Yeah. So I was going to go, but I was down to my last 2 cans and I had none in the garage refrigerator. And Bobby sent me 12. She is a little psychic goddess. So I know we are kind of a week behind, and I know some podcasts take the holidays off, but we here at Headache Soul Productions, we never take a day off, do we, Joshua?
No way.
I keep you like nose to the grindstone. Yeah. I was going to say balls to the grindstone, but I thought maybe I don't know.
Balls to the lawnmower 4.0.
Yeah. I wanted to say no thank you to the new 1-star rating. No review, you chicken. But if you would like to support the podcast, consider leaving a review and a rating on whatever podcast app you're streaming. And we'll re-record the last episode in a couple of weeks. But for right now,
absolutely,
we're kind of moving on to a different thing. So as much as I would love to cover all of this stuff, it would take, I don't know how many episodes it would take. And I bet there's some really great podcasts out there who have covered everything. But I just want to cover a few of the cases from the Texas killing fields. And I've never, ever, ever wanted to do this because it's so overwhelming. And again, I feel that other outlets probably cover it better. Although after seeing the new Netflix docuseries, Crime Scene, oddly produced by Ron Howard and Brian Grazer.
Oh.
Yeah, it's interesting how wholesome, yet they've dipped their toe into true crime. They did a pretty good job, but honestly, how do I say this without they could have done a whole lot more. They have the capability to do a whole lot more. And they obviously had some good producers working on it, but what they had were stars. And it's terrible. No one wants to be a star in the true crime world.
Oh.
But Tim Miller, whose daughter, Laura Miller, propelled him to start Texas EquiSearch in 2000. If Laura's horrible death has any redemption, it's that Tim Miller has helped to find 400 missing people and 240 deceased people. And he, he started this in 2000, and yeah, we'll talk about him too. This is basically just going to be the case of Laura Miller and Heidi Fye, the 2 first people found in the area on Calder Road in the Texas killing fields. And it's really, I want it to also be about Tim, because Tim is, I don't know that I've ever seen anyone like him. So I'm going to suggest, if you have Netflix, that you watch The Killing Fields. Okay. I can tell you that the 2 previous series, the Cecil Hotel, was terrible. It was awful and irresponsible. They interviewed people who had no real reason to be interviewed. Elisa Lam disappears. She is a beautiful girl who's staying, while looking around the United States, and she is an unmedicated schizophrenic. And you see her in the elevator on film, going in and out of the elevator and looking down the hallway. She's obviously having a mental break.
Oh, no.
And they wanted to turn it into a murder, and there was no murder. And that series almost made me not want to watch anything they did. The second one is the Times Square killer, and they did a better job. I feel like the best job they've done is the Killing Fields, and even that isn't great. And I'm really not here to do a review. I was disappointed that there were only 3 episodes. They did bring out some important things, but I felt like some things were left out.
Got it.
And that's how I feel about what I'm going to do. There's going to be so much left out, but I can't cover it all unless I took a year. The story is important. So I've never wanted to do large cases. Some of the sweet listeners have sent things to me, and I'm like, look, other people are going to cover this, better, deeper, more money, more resources. And I don't want to do that. But I feel like at least with this one, they were more respectful. By they, I mean the producers of Crime Scene. The Cecil Hotel, I really cannot. It was conjecture and rumor and bullshittery. Sorry. That's, no one needs my opinion on that.
Sure.
So this series, the 3 episodes. I'm sorry, did you?
Oh, no, I just wanted to confirm. So just watch that one episode.
No, you can watch any ones you want.
What should I watch, Melissa?
Right. No one gives a shit about my opinion. I would start with the Killing Fields because
Okay.
I think if you start with the Cecil Hotel, you're going to get angry and not
continue.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And I have to say, it's almost like with each endeavor, they get better. So the first, the Cecil Hotel was absolutely, positively terrible. They interviewed, I don't want to be put down my own group, but they interviewed podcast hosts who knew nothing, who were nothing, who said nothing except tried to stir the shit. It was so frustrating to watch. Mark and I watched it, and I was like, I can't even watch this anymore. They're interviewing people who are giving like conspiracy theories and fake theories. And it's like, why?
Yeah, no. Okay.
That's not what you do. That's not what you do. So the second one, the Times Square killer, it's not bad. I think this is their best one. And yet I'm still left wanting more because they kind of didn't wrap things up, in my opinion.
Got it.
They did some really interesting, things. They did get not too many interviews, but quality interviews.
Oh, good.
Quality people. And they got Tim Miller, who is the most authentic, real, pain-filled man I think you've ever seen. They got him being himself, and not that he's never not himself, but they got him, going through some old evidence, and he's like, I don't know why I looked through this fucking shit 38 years later. And he got upset and said, let's just stop.
Oh, wow.
And they stopped. I mean, it's things like that, I think hit home. If you know someone, if you have a family member, someone has been a victim of violence of any kind, his raw pain is hard to watch, and yet it's a beautiful gift,
Oh, yeah, wow.
Yeah, he's an amazing guy. So this is also hosted by my beloved Skip Hollandsworth, who is the editor, I think he might be retired, of the Texas Monthly. He is a brilliant writer of true crime. He has a book, The Midnight Assassin, about the United States' first serial killer, ironically in Texas. He was the host of his own podcast called Tom Brown's Body. And while I wasn't thrilled with that, Skip Hollandsworth is delightful. And I got to meet him in New York. And I guess it was 2016. Yeah. And he'd never been fangirled. And he was at a restaurant with, I guess, a very cynical friend and his wife. And he and his wife were there. He also wrote the film Bernie that Jack Black starred in, and Shirley MacLaine.
Oh,
about a real life.
That was amazing. Okay, so he wrote that.
There you go.
Oh, okay.
So that's what I said. First of all, I'm terrible. I surreptitiously take a picture of him and send it to Mark, who was arriving by cab after a meeting to have lunch with me at this place called Smith. Doesn't that sound like New York hoity-toity bullshittery?
Sure.
The food was pretty good, but the whole thing was about me getting to see Skip Hollandsworth.
Cool.
So I take a picture and I send it to Mark, and I'm like, Skip Hollandsworth. I know. I'm like, it's like I'm meeting a rock star. I'm so fucking goofy.
And you just recognized him sitting there in the booth?
Fuck yeah.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah. So
That's...
I walk by. She leads us to our table. And as we walk by, I go, "Hi, Mr. Hollandsworth. I'm a really big fan. I just want you to know I think Bernie got robbed. You should have gotten an Oscar in your..." And he goes, wait a minute. Who are you?" And I'm like, "I'm just your biggest fan." He goes, "All right, go sit down. I'm going to come and talk to you."
Oh, my God.
And he did. And I have pictures of him with his arms around me. And I'm like, so he came over and he goes, "You don't know what you just did." He goes, "I'm here to talk to my editor about this book I want to write. And it's, it's about a serial killer." And I'm like, "I host a true crime podcast." And he's like, "Oh, this is great." And he goes, "My friend thinks I'm shit." Oh. And he thinks I paid you to say that.
Nice.
I'm like, "Tell him it was all free. I would pay you because you are..." He does a lot of color commentary on true crime cases. If you saw him, the second you saw him and heard his extremely beautiful voice, you'd be like, "Oh, I know that guy."
Oh, okay.
He's literally like a Bryant Gumbel for true crime.
Okay.
It's an old reference, but he does true commentary. And I mean, he does color commentary on true crime cases, and he does a beautiful job because he's respectful. And I'll tell you something else. He said something in one of these episodes that's goddamn brilliant. And I think it was, I feel like you can see it come out of his face, and it was off the cuff, and it was not written for him. And it blew me back. It was so smart.
Okay.
So the killing fields probably started in the 1970s.
Okay.
A lot of truck drivers, a lot of, there's a lot of growth in Galveston and Houston. It's a main thoroughfare for people like itinerant workers, construction, people in construction.
Okay.
They named it the Killing Fields because the film, The Killing Fields, about the Khmer Rouge, the big film about that,
right.
And they thought it was a really, I guess they just took that name. And they've done actually a film, it was like maybe 10 or 12 years ago, with Jeffrey Dean Morgan and Jessica Chastain about the actual killing fields in Texas,
okay.
not the Khmer Rouge, but yeah. And it's Jeffrey Dean Morgan is the best part. And I love Jessica Chastain. I think she's amazing. But Jeffrey Dean Morgan he plays a detective.
Okay, he's a detective.
Yeah, I wanted him to be a killer, but he's not.
I mean, he can do both ways.
He can. He
can do the loving, sweet.
Yeah. He's like the overworked, grizzled detective who just wants to solve it. It's not a great film, but he's the best part of it in my mind.
Okay, cool.
So, in 1984, the aforementioned Tim Miller has a 16-year-old daughter, Laura, and she's, the light of his life. He and his wife have this lovely daughter, Laura, and she wants to see her boyfriend. And I think he kind of says no. So she walks a half a mile to a convenience store to use the payphone. To call her boyfriend. She's seen on the payphone by, patrons of the convenience store, and she never returns. Now, Tim Miller kicks into gear like a well-oiled machine and is fairly stopped by the League City Police Department, which is where they live. And they classify Laura as a runaway. And they say, "Just go home, Mr. Miller. She's going to come back."
She's going to come back, okay. But he's not having that answer. Okay.
He knows that that's not going to happen. So he spends, time, effort, energy, money trying to find his daughter. And in the meantime, I guess about a year after that, October of 1983, she went missing in October. So here's how we have to go back and forth through time, and I apologize. In October of 1983, Heidi Fye is in the same area and a 23-year-old cocktail server, and she went missing in October of 1983. In April of 1984, a dog is being walked by its owner and comes back to the owner with her skull.
Oh, God.
And they find the rest of her, and this is the beginning of what they're calling the killing fields. Tim Miller says, "Please check these fields. My daughter is in there. I know my daughter is there. Check these fields." Like, "Nope, this is a singular incident, Mr. Miller. This is the only time this has happened. There's not a serial killer." And about a year after that, in 1986, is when Laura's remains are found. 25 yards from where Heidi was found.
Oh, no. Okay.
Yeah. There are two other bodies found, and yeah, we'll get. I wish I had 1,000 years to talk about all of this, but I don't. So we're just going to concentrate on what happens with these 4 bodies in the killing fields, but just know there are 25 more
Oh, whoa.
up
Okay.
and down the I-45 corridor.
Oh my gosh.
Probably, unfortunately, more than one serial killer.
Okay. It's. Oh wow.
Mm-hmm. And this is, I hate serial killers. And I do hate serial killers.
Sure,
I hate
who
talking
doesn't?
about them. Yeah, there are probably some people that are okay with that, but I'm not one of those. I hate talking about serial killers, and I hate talking about these kind of big cases because, again, I just feel like I'm not going to do a great job. Anyway, all I can tell you is I'm going to do the best that I can.
Your best is amazing. Shut
Oh,
up.
I know. It's amazing. So there are what ends up being 11 jurisdictions in all of these cases along the I-45 corridor. And they are, connecting cases still to this day. And I'm actually going to give you some places that you can call at the end of this. If you have any, the FBI, the special agent, I think his name is Robert Resson. He is the perfect person. He's like, look, I retire in a year and a half. I want everything you can think of, even if you think it's not important.
It's cute. Yeah.
He just wants every piece of information. So Heidi Fye is this beautiful 23-year-old cocktail server. And she worked at, apparently Texas roadhouses are a big deal. Like lots of people go to dance and shit.
Sure. And fight.
And shit. And fight and fuck and all the fun stuff. All the fun Fs.
All the good ones.
If only it could be called fance instead of dance. That'd be fight, fucking fance.
There it is.
Yeah, all that shit. So she, is found about 6 months later, and this is how bad it is. She has to be identified with dental records.
Oh, no.
25 yards away from Heidi Fye is where Laura is found a year later. 25 yards away. And Tim Miller begged them, please look there. Please look there. Heidi had been shot in the spine with a .22 caliber.
Oh, geez.
Yeah. Several people along the way have become suspects. Interesting, weird people. One is Robert Abel, who was a NASA engineer. And he owned the property right next to the property that is called the Killing Fields is owned by a large oil company.
Okay.
And Robert Abel was a weirdo who, just because you're a weirdo doesn't mean you kill people.
No, absolutely.
But super weirdo. Like collect newspaper clippings about the murders. And I get it. It's next to your property. Maybe that's something. I know people usually do that. It can either be someone who has, he sort of inserts himself, and it could be someone who has a great interest and an ability to express themselves correctly, or it could be a monster who wants to talk about their work.
Yeah.
He is a complete and utter weirdo. Tim Miller, here's something else. Tim Miller is getting up there now. He's in his 70s, and I know things are getting harder, but what you don't ever want to do is get Tim Miller on your bad side because he'll make your life hell. So Tim Miller became obsessed. And I think if you see any interviews with him or even this crime scene docuseries, you'll see the obsession. He is obsessed. Who can blame him?
Okay.
His daughter, was missing. She's found undetermined death, except that she is in the field next to another murdered woman. So anyway.
Oh, they can't. The remains are at that point.
Right. And there's actually an interesting, weird story about her remains toward the end of this.
Okay.
So her death is still unsolved. He feels he knows who did it, and I can't disagree, and we'll get to that person too. So he at first becomes focused on Robert Abel, and who can blame him? The FBI basically opened the door wide and gave everyone a profile, and it was basically with a picture of Robert Abel next to it. It's intelligent, loner, thinks they're smarter than everyone else. It was Robert Abel. And I think he was just a stone cold weirdo.
Okay.
And look, I feel bad for him, what happened, and we'll never know if it was an accident or if he purposefully ended his life. But, this is all hearsay. I don't know if it's true, but he wanted to open like a horse trail kind of equestrian place. And they said he was extremely abusive to the horses.
Oh no.
And, yeah, I don't know. Anyway, he is so like honestly run out of town on a rail. He moves to a family farm. He moves. He gets out of that farm and moves. And when he's like 64, 65, he has a golf cart and he drives it onto a railroad track as a train's coming. No one knows if it was suicide or an accident. That's never going to be solved.
Sure.
So there's a lot, and people can say it's Tim Miller's fault. Here's something else I'll tell you. Tim Miller came to the conclusion it's not Robert Abel and called him and apologized.
Oh.
He said, we got a chance to meet. We cried and hugged each other.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. So as obsessed as Tim Miller is, I understand. I can't imagine losing a child and in a horrific way. But he is still a compassionate man who wants to make amends if he makes a mistake.
Got it.
So, I mean, I don't think it was him entirely that ran Robert Abel out of town, but I think when a small town comes after you, you probably really just have to leave.
Sure.
It's just.
Yeah. I mean, how can you live your life if,
So the case takes a bit of a turn when a man named William Reese abducts a girl from a parking lot, and her name is Sandra Sapal. And she does the unthinkable. She is in his dually truck speeding down I-45.
Oh, no.
And instead of whatever happens to her at his hands, which we know what later on, what would have happened because he finally confessed, she jumps out of the moving car. She is battered and bloody, and she runs to a Waffle House and won't even go in the Waffle House. She only will stay in the parking lot. And the 911 call of a woman calling it in is one of the more beautiful things I've ever heard. The woman is very even keeled, and even the 911 operator does a wonderful job of saying, the truck is proceeding, east on I-45, and it's a white dually. And I mean, that's beautifully done. She's doing her job. But I'm sure not every day at the Waffle House, a bloodied, beautiful girl shows up and says, I was kidnapped and I jumped out of the truck.
Wow.
So she is good. She's a good witness. And she describes the inside of the truck. She describes him so beautifully. And whoever that crime scene artist is, she describes him dirty blonde hair, loose skin, big bags under his eyes, blue eyes. I mean, and they put a picture of William Reese and the sketch, and it's like,
it's really good. Oh,
holy fuck. So she did an amazing job. The artist did an amazing job, and they pick him up pretty quickly.
Oh, good.
They find out that he had recently gotten out of prison in Oklahoma for a laundry list of things, but one of them being sexual assault. Had moved to the area because it's booming, and he got a job as a construction worker.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just terrible. So she ends up testifying in court, and he is put away for her, kidnapping. He later on confesses after denying, so that he does not get the death penalty. He confesses to 3 murders.
Shoot.
Of girls on the I-45 corridor.
Oh, wow.
One was not. Her name's Laura Smither, but we're not going to talk about all the cases because I can't. I couldn't make it through this. I would end up crying. She was like a 13-year-old girl, and her parents are right up there with Tim Miller. Her mom's British, and her mom and her dad stand out in the rain and hand out flyers.
Oh, wow.
And her body is found kind of washed up in one of those, Galveston is kind of a weird area,
Okay.
A lot of water, a lot of rain.
Oh, okay.
It's kind of weird. She washes up like on a beach, and somebody said, "Oh, that's, probably a large fish or something." And the young son said, "Dad, fish don't wear socks.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Later on, William Reese confesses to killing Laura Smither, Jessica Kane, and Kelly Cox. And Jessica Kane and Kelly Cox were just, two girls that were missing from the area, like so many other missing girls. So what was interesting is that Tim Miller assisted with where William Reese said that Jessica Kane and Kelly Cox were buried. He assisted. And
how is it?
Right.
Okay.
He gets a chance to talk to William Reese. And I'll tell you, I think William Reese gives him an answer that was the first honest answer in his life. Because you hear his taped interviews. He's like, no, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know her. I don't know anything about it. He just, and he's faced in court with Sandra Sapal, who brought him down.
Okay.
And just is nothing. He just sits nothing. And Tim Miller said, what about this, Mr. Reese?
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel any remorse? And Tim Miller said, he looks me in the eye and says, what you don't understand, Mr. Miller, is guys like me, we don't feel anything.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And how true is that, though? I mean, how many people have you talked about? How many guys like him have you talked about that? And the reaction is, I can't believe it. I don't understand it.
Because you're a normal human.
Right.
And that's what Tim Miller, he said exactly what you said. He goes, I don't get it. I don't get it. I don't understand it. It's because he's not a sociopath.
Right.
And I don't know if that piece of information brought him any peace or just made things worse.
Yeah. Wow.
I guess having information, even as hard as it is, and it's not that couldn't have dawned on him. He had to know somebody who would do something terrible to young girls and women can't have a conscience or feel remorse. I mean, as they're digging up these two women, and the only reason he told them that he killed them and where they were, it was like, let's make a deal. I won't get the death penalty if I tell you about the other people I killed. Wow. And eventually admits to killing Laura Smither. So I feel like Sandra Sapal is kind of a hero in this, because I think she started the ball rolling by being a survivor. And there may be other survivors of William Reese and of the last person we're going to talk about, whose name is Clyde Hedrick. So Clyde is now on the radar of Tim Miller, and that's a place you don't want to be.
Okay.
You don't want to be on Tim Miller's radar. He lived next door to Tim Miller at one point.
Oh, no.
And his daughter Laura would say, that guy scares me.
Oh, geez. And
Tim, being a neighborly Texas guy, at one point helped Clyde with a car issue. I can't remember if it was a flat tire or helped him fix something with his car. And he said, how much do I owe you? And he's like, no, that's what we do. We're neighbors.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Clyde Hedrick is a 68-year-old man. He's still alive.
He was 68 at the time?
No, he's 68 now.
No, he's 68 now. Oh, so he was young. And okay.
He had a girlfriend and abused her daughter and abused the girlfriend enough. The daughter was interviewed in the docuseries. Abused the mother enough that she left him finally. When the daughter was 18, she left and was like, he did this to me. And her mom was like, no, he didn't. And then this is the really awful part. They go back to the trailer where they lived, and she finds in the wall a hole where he had watched her.
Oh, gross.
Through the wall. And she said, all those times I was in there changing clothes, and, this person was watching me as a young teenage girl.
Ugh.
So a woman named Ellen Beeson is found, and the lack of correct investigating in that case is horrifying, but they made up for it. He was the last person to be seen. Clyde Hedrick was the last person to be seen with Ellen Beeson. She was 29 years old. I believe they met at a bar. He used to go to this bar and wear his black hat. So she's found in July of 1984. And because it's been so long, she's like stuffed under like an outbuilding that was like a shack.
Oh, jeez.
And when she's found, they can't tell you how she was killed or how she died. This just is infuriating. But they get him. They get him. Let's see his story. He said they had gone, he admits to being the last person to be seen with her.
Mm-hmm.
He said they'd gone skinny dipping at this specific swimming hole.
Okay.
And 1 minute she's swimming and the next minute she's face down.
That's what he says? That's his story?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And because the coroner said that her cause of death was undetermined, which is so aggravating right now. So he is charged with abuse of a corpse.
Oh my God.
Because he said, you know what? I was going to take her to the hospital, but I thought I would be suspected of killing her.
Mm-hmm.
So I just left her body.
Oh, geez.
Yeah. So in 2014, her death is ruled a homicide.
Okay.
They exhume her body and she has large breaks in her skull.
That they didn't miss the first time they looked? Okay.
Yes.
Oh, boy.
20 years later, she's exhumed and they question him. And that questioning is pretty awesome. That video clip. He's like, yeah, I don't know. By now he's, older. He'd had cancer, had half of his jaw removed. He looks pretty bad. And like 8 years ago, so he'd been close to 60. And they're, talking to him and they're like, look, we know that she didn't drown accidentally. These are not cracks, tiny fissures. These are full-blown blunt force head trauma. He goes, well, I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. I mean, she was just, she was floating and then she wasn't. And I got scared and put her, in some weeds.
Oh, boy.
So he is brought to trial for her homicide. He gets 20 years. And guess how long he serves? 8.
Oh, boy.
He's out. He's living in a halfway house.
Okay.
And one of the only things that brings me peace is that Tim Miller will not stop.
Oh, he's keeping on him.
He stands outside the halfway house and says, hi, Clyde. I want you to know I'm coming after you. I'll be here till the day I die.
Wow.
Yeah. They held a press conference in front of the halfway house with, the female daughter victim, the niece of Heidi Fye, who literally, and I don't want to talk about Heidi's case too much because I really want this to be about Tim Miller and any sort of positive thing that came from Laura.
Sure.
Heidi Fye's parents died of broken hearts. They just did.
No.
They just did. It's clear. It's clear.
Gosh.
So her niece is like, this changed our family. This changed our lives. She's a wonderful spokesperson for her aunt's case.
Wow.
So I don't like to think that Tim Miller is litigious, but he has had a few good reasons to bring some lawsuits.
Okay.
One of them was against Galveston County. So the way they handled it was, I guess, to not compromise a case that they swore wasn't a case, with more than one body. They wouldn't let Heidi Fye's parents talk to Tim Miller. They didn't want them talking. When they finally did talk a little bit, they had so much in common and could have been great, solace for each other.
Right.
And I get it. They didn't want the case to be compromised, like comparing notes, because Heidi Fye's dad was, possessed, and you can't blame him.
Yeah.
So it turns out that Laura was buried with more ribs than a human being should have.
Oh, God.
So they exhumed her body, and part of her ribs were another Jane Doe.
Oh, no.
And Tim Miller said, all I wanted was to lay my daughter to rest, and here we go again.
Oh, no.
I know. So here's why I don't think that Tim Miller is litigious. He filed a wrongful death lawsuit against Clyde Hedrick, even though he's never been charged in Laura's murder. In July of 2022, he received a judgment for $24 million in liability and damages. And he'd actually filed the case in 2014, but it came to trial in 2014 when Clyde Hedrick went to prison for Ellen Beeson's murder. So it finally came to judgment, but he's not ever going to get $24 million.
No, of
it's
course
just
not,
having it on record.
Right.
Yeah. And that's why he stands out in front of the halfway house and says, I know where you are, Clyde.
Right.
I'm here.
Right.
I'm coming for you, Clyde.
Right.
So yeah, Clyde Hedrick is a piece of shit. And sorry, I guess I shouldn't say that, but I'm going to say that. And if, Tim Miller, who can be obsessive, we know, and also is good at saying, I fucked up. He's, in his mind, very sure that Clyde Hedrick is the person that killed Laura.
Okay.
And, I know we don't have proof.
Sure.
He also believes he's the person who killed Heidi Fye.
Okay.
Known to be at the club she worked at.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there are connections. I mean, he lived next door to Laura as a child.
And watched her walk to the convenience store.
Yeah, and was a patron of the club where Heidi worked.
Yeah, okay.
There are probably more.
So he was only ever convicted of the one murder of Ellen Beeson.
Yeah.
Excuse me. But the suspicion is, some maybe many more of these were him. Got it.
Yes. And it's a weird Texas law. I'm learning more about Texas law than I want to know, because I always thought they were like the hang 'em high state, right?
Mm-hmm.
Death penalty, capital murder, you get the death penalty. No, you don't fuck around. You don't get, 20 years to life. You get the fucking death penalty.
Right.
So, I mean, I guess that's why William Reese made the deal. He was going to get the death penalty for, kidnap and, attempted rape. So, I mean, I always thought Texas was that state, and it's a weird twist of fate that he does 8 years out of 20 for what they termed manslaughter. Ellen Beeson died of accident.
Oh, it wasn't
manslaughter.
Oh, he didn't get charged with murder. He got charged with
manslaughter.
Like she accidentally
like
got
maybe
hit
he
in
was
the head by his brick.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
While swimming in a swimming hole.
Yeah, okay.
Because I think he tried to make it like, oh, she slipped and fell and hit her head on a rock.
Yeah, okay.
They can tell,
right,
how you were hit or whether you landed on something or something landed on you.
Yeah.
So I think he thought he outsmarted everyone.
Right.
But he didn't. So my beloved Skip Hollandsworth said something really fascinating to me. He said, he's like talking offhandedly, and he's just such a great kind of narrator for stuff like this.
Okay.
He said, why not just put him in the bay? You're driving, you've, done something terrible. Why not put them in the bay and they're gone? Mm-hmm.
Right.
Why leave them in the, wooded, grassy area along the I-45 corridor?
Huh.
I've never thought that.
Okay.
I was like,
so there's some sort of ego thing or something.
I think
that they want to.
I think. I mean, I just thought that was, everyone can have their own assumption about why people do what they do. But yeah, maybe they think a body would float up. I mean, I don't know. I was like, holy shit, he's right. I think if you saw the topography of these bridges over this big bay, near Galveston, I think you'd be like, well, shit, why wouldn't they?
Yeah, just dump it. Yeah.
It's super weird. Maybe, and I don't want to think of serial killers as evolving, but maybe they, were like, oh, we'll put them here and no one will find them. And then they are found, some of them anyway. And then later on, they've decided to use the water. I don't know. I mean, to me, it seems so,
wow.
It would be easier. So I'm thinking it's even subconscious.
Yeah, wow.
That they want their handiwork found. So I did want to say again that Tim Miller is kind of a national treasure. And I think we can all probably agree with that, even if it was something so terrible that propelled him to do what he's doing. This is something I love about him. He is absolutely devoid of any ego. They helped the
Wow.
Texas EquiSearch has helped so many cases, so many people. They found some people that are just missing and alive, but so much hard
That's
work.
cool.
So, do you remember the Vanessa Guillon case
Mhm.
in Texas?
Yeah, and he was that organization was on it. Was part of it. Yeah.
They found her.
Yeah. Okay.
And then pointed law enforcement to her.
Yeah. That's amazing.
And just stepped back and don't want any of the glory. They do not want the he is a special human being. So if there's anything good that comes out of Laura's death, which is so hard to say that, it's that Tim Miller stepped into a terrible, awful role that none of us would want, but he's done so beautifully.
Done it so well.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So I'm going to say this. If you happen to be listening to this, if you know anything about any of the men mentioned, Clyde Hedrick, William Reese, or even Robert Abel, who I think is really kind of proven to have been just a weirdo, but not a suspect or person of interest.
Sure.
If you know anything, the FBI is asking for your help. They are asking for your help. And you can call 1-800-CALL-FBI. That's 1-800-225-5324. Or you can find them on tips.fbi.gov. And they say it's anonymous. I don't know how it's anonymous, but, they'll keep your anonymity, I guess, as much as the FBI can, because they probably know what you had for breakfast. But, or no, is that the CIA?
Everybody on Facebook knows what I had for breakfast.
Yeah, because you post pictures of your food all the time, you weirdo. Anyway, if you know anything, please consider calling. I've considered calling on a couple of things in my life, so please consider doing that. And know that even as the special agent says, if you think it's nothing, if you think it's small, it might be huge. So consider doing that. And thank you for listening to this, my Tipsters, and more cowbell.
If you would like to support this podcast and get early access and other cool murderous swag, go to patreon.com/justthetipsters.